Okay. No, the internet looks too slow. What's going on here? Can you have a look at live, Jing?
What, is that on or not?
Yep. Okay, I think we've got a problem there. I'm not sure whether this is going to be going smooth or not. Jane is checking it now, and this is an answer session to your questions. And I think it might have a problem with the internet. We actually moved. If you followed the post this morning, tracker update, we got chased out of our Airbnb. Now that's going crazy. And we're now in an apartment, 20th floor, looking out over Auckland Harbour. It's really quite cool, and we'll be flying out tomorrow. So I thought best to get into these question and answer sessions and try and give you some answers to your numerous bits and pieces. So straight into it. First one from Property Joint Venture, no idea who that is Ocean Racing becoming just a mass-sponsored tour? As a 50-plus year ex-pro sailor, I'm loving watching this one, but it's starting to look a little stale and over-published. Now, I'm not sure what that is. I asked for an explanation because, is it looking a bit stale and over-published? I think, and I asked for clarification. It came back and it was not this race, so we're not stale and over-published. It was referring to just dozens of others that seem to be appearing every other week. I'm loving every minute of this one. So yeah, I mean, it's quite a unique situation at the moment. I think there's something like 5 round the world races happening right now. You have the Clipper race, Robert Knox Johnson's Clipper race around the world. You've got the Akira Ultim race that had 6 giant Ultim trimarans racing solo around the world. A couple of them are in trouble, and but the others are carrying on. That's pretty cool. You've got the Global Solo Challenge or Solo Global Challenge or something or other, a solo race around the world, doing whatever you want with whatever equipment you want, and boats from 34 feet up to 70 feet. Really quite interesting. And then what else is there? There's another one. Jeepers is another one. I forget now. Losing track of them. There's that many of them. And certainly Ocean Globe Race stands out as being unique. Something to think about. A long time ago, I learned that if you can't compete, just specialise. And there is nothing like the Ocean Globe Race to a degree. There's some unique features that we have. But yes, there is only so much media available to talk about all around the world races happening at the moment. Certainly there's big money involved with the Ultim Challenge, and when the Vendée Globe's on, there's huge money, and they scoop the pool. They've got a huge interest, people there. We're an inaugural event. More and more people are hearing about it and enjoying it. Those that are following it are really enjoying it. They tell us that quite clearly. And but yeah, there's a lot of different events out there, and they all attract their own segment of interest. And in sailing, that's the beauty of sailing. There's something for everyone. I love seeing some of the super high tech stuff for sure. But I'm focused, we all are focused on the human story, and it was very interesting. Here's a classic. I follow a publication called Tip and Shaft. It's a French industry sailing boating newsletter you subscribe to. It is fantastic. They have like 12,000 subscribers or something, and they get into the depth of what's going on. The Golden Globe race has been featured there before. But there are so many around the world races now. They have a little paragraph every week. It comes out on Friday nights. And every week they update a couple of features and then a generalization. And for around the world, it's just like 4 of the around the world races, they get a little snippet. But the interesting one was, and this was another affirmation of what we do, a very serious sailor, well known in France and Europe, very high profile commentator, qualified to say whatever he wants, whenever he wants, and he did a passing comments on the Ultim Challenge, saying it's really cool because for the first time they got something to really focus on that's different, where the sailors go over the horizon and so on. But he brought a classic line right in the middle of it, which was highlighted by the editors of Tip and Shaft, and it simply said that all of that sort of high tech goes out the window. What people want to know is it's all about the adventure, the sailors, and the human stories, right? It's all about the stories, human stories. We see this coming up as a new line more and more often over the last few years. We've been saying it since 2014. That's where we know the story is. It's all about the sailor, not the 25 million euro budget. That's interesting, but once they're on the water, it's all about the sailor, and there's huge stories in the OGR. So yes, it's sort of over publicized. There's a lot of stories on all of these around the world races, but we just do what we do, and everyone that's following it is enjoying it. So that's kind of cool, and we know we've got something special, and I can't wait for. We've got to finish this one, but 27 is shaping up to be quite interesting, to say the least. Okay, so that was a good question. There's some interesting comments from Simon Childs here. It's not a question; he's commenting in response to that previous question, and it's a very interesting response. Thanks for that, Simon. There's more replies there. I'm not going to go into it, but there's 5 more replies that I haven't got to. So I'll leave that. You can follow it on the Q&A post there, but it'll all be reflected. Well, I'll have a look. I'm going to have a sneak peek here and see what it was. Talking about the race. They love the OGR. Okay. Philip, wondering about a date for the prize giving back in the UK. Travelled there from the start of Prince Edward Island. And that was where Kirsten actually did her preparation for the Golden Globe. That was an amazing story. I won't go into it now, but it's, Prince Edward Island, the whole community got behind Kirsten and helped her rebuild the boat, get going, and did all sorts of stuff, which is fantastic. Would love to be back there again for that. Thanks for all that you do. Well, Philip, we haven't decided yet exactly the timeline for the prize giving presentation, because when the boats will arrive over a period of a couple of weeks, a few weeks, and the early ones they're not going to wait around for 3 weeks for a prize giving. They're going to probably sail their boats home and so on. So we've accepted the fact that they're going to want to travel back to the prize giving. So at this stage, we think that the prize giving will be sometime in May, because the stragglers might not finish until late April. And if that's the case, so be it. We're just deciding right now on the venue for the prize giving, and we've got our eye on. This is a bit of a tip. We've got our eye on a very special establishment, which has got a strong historic connection to the early Whitbreads for their prize givings. And wouldn't it be fantastic if we got the same venue? So we're working on that right now, and we will let you know when we get there. And I think it'll be another 2 or 3 weeks yet before we announce where the prize giving is and who's going to be available to come, because that's the next issue. We still haven't firmed up on the concept of the prize giving, whether it's going to be open to the public, a big public thing, or whether it's going to be a closed shop just for the entrance or whatever. So when we make all those decisions, we'll let you know. So all cool. Okay, Turja Ku. Hi, Don. Missed this and was too ashamed to ask earlier. Was wondering if when boats were in Auckland, YB Max showed boats on land. Well, that was because they were actually hauled out and put on land. There's a couple of boats that were had to slip and work on the hull. Evrika was up on the slip. Neptune was up on the slip. Translated were up for a long time. They went up and down because they found another leak. There's a fewer boats out of the water, and that's why it showed it. Is lifting the boat out of the water allowed in port? Yes, it is. There's any amount of outside assistance is allowed once they cross the finish line to when you leave the marina ready for the restart. Outside assistance is allowed. That's the rule. No penalties at all, except for sails, and we've dealt with that really strongly. It's all about the winner of the 1977 Whitbread used over 50 sails to win the race, and we wanted to cap that and never allow anything like that to take place. So there are sail restrictions in numbers and restrictions on what they can and can't do to encourage people to build strong sails and sail sensibly. It saves a lot of money, and you can still have just as much fun. And it's working. Half the fleet get it, and they're enjoying that aspect. So, okay, no penalties. Sorry for the dumb. No such thing as a dumb question. So that's fine. Okay, John Edward. Hi again, John. Haven't spoken for a while. Followed your events. Yeah, we know that you're a big fan. The coverage of the Ocean Globe is over the top. It sure is. We're busy producing the material, but we don't think it's too much, and because different people follow different aspects of the coverage. So glad to see you're enjoying it. Would you mention by name all the people in front and behind the scenes and what their responsibilities are? for Facebook, Twitter, and so on. Okay, so I'm a big part of this, right? I'm mostly the person, not the only person, but I mostly overview Facebook. Okay, so that's me. I'll produce the posts, and others within the team might produce the post and put them up as well. But generally, it's me you're talking to on Facebook. Twitter, we're not actively pursuing Twitter as an organisation. We put the tweets up on Twitter, and that's about it. We're so busy with everything else in a small team. We have a social media plan, but we're managing different sections. On YouTube, Rob Havel, who's based in the UK, he didn't make it out to Auckland, unfortunately, for personal reasons, but he will be in Punta. He does all our camera work and digital production. He manages the whole website. He does the filming, our doco filming normally for that, and does all the video editing and produces all the YouTube stuff. Even the photo galleries that we do sometimes, the music, which we'll get into again. That's all Rob doing that. He's posting on YouTube, and then I'll share it on Facebook and so on. So that's fine. The lives, it used to be Ada and Jane and me. Now it's Jane and me and Jack and Georgie and Marco, whoever's around to do the lives and so on. And the production is Jane is producing, doing all the technical side of it with the cameras and so on. Everyone, there's a few people involved with the production of the Facebook lives. I do all the tracker updates and so on. We're using a program here called Be Live. It's an app which does it sort of automatically. It's pretty simple to operate and gives us reasonable results. The photography, it's a bit of a mix of everyone. Anyone within the team taking good photos. When we do a photo gallery now, we pull those photos, and Jane will go through and do the selection and post that. Previously, Ada used to do the majority of a big chunk of the photos, do the photo galleries and so on. So videos, travel arrangement. Oh well, we just do it. It happens within the team, and Jane sort of pays all the bills, and the team sometimes book all their own airfares and stuff, and then they invoice us for that later on. So that's how that happens. Jane is handling Instagram, by the way, and that's growing rapidly. We're getting some big hits on Instagram, up to 50,000 views on some of the photos and the little video clips and so on. And we've got, I think it's 9,000 or something, 9,000 followers on Instagram now. But sometimes it goes way outside that. It can be quite big. Instagram's quite fun. Jane enjoys doing that. So that's cool. I think that's about all. So Georgie is our manager. Georgie is the boss, in the background, making sure everything's happening. Georgie and I are regularly talking about tactics, what's next, what's happening, and then decisions are made, and she pulls it off, makes it happen. And very busy. And Jack is our media manager, so she's always producing the press releases and talking to media, trying to encourage television networks to come down, radio stations, liaising with European outlets and things like that. That's her role. She's a great writer and so on. And that guy over in America, writing all those controversial daily posts about updates on the race. I won't mention him by name. We don't want to make him too popular. Brian, did I say Brian? Oh, anyway, he writes the daily update without editing or anything like that. We just put up whatever he does, and it's quite a lot of fun. And it's really interesting. In the beginning, a lot of people were saying, how can you do that? This is disgusting or whatever. And honestly, I knew it would become very successful because it's very human stories. And yes, Jane hides from the camera, but we promote the idea that you all need to know who the team is. You know about Marco, and Rob's a bit behind the scenes at the moment because he's not here. He's in the UK, but you all know who is there, doing bits and pieces. So, that's sort of important as well. I think that's, Marco's logistics. He's been doing all the on the ground stuff. Logistics, making things happen, all banners and bits and pieces. Marco's he's sort of off now for a couple of months, and he'll rejoin us again towards the finish, middle of March. Marco will be back doing bits. So, quite cool. Okay, so I think that covers that. John, what's Triana's secret? They're hot. I tend to agree. They are very hot, and I think the secret is that Jean Arthuis, the owner of the boat and the campaign, has a simple philosophy of he wants to be competitive, he wants to win, He's invested a lot of money in the boat and the crew and all that sort of stuff, and he has a personal passion to make this work. And I think the crew that he's got on board, particularly with Sebastian, it's like a brains trust. He is a very qualified, very experienced sailor. He's like a silent giant. He comes across as sort of like he's a really nice guy, big fella, and very very confident. Every movement he makes, whatever he does, you can see on the boat it's with purpose, because he's done so much of it. He's been around the world so many times, and he's got, he's a guy with big hands, and he's got a wealth of experience back there. And so you put that together with some other competent crew. There's a young guy on board now that came off of Pet Jewett. He's got some personal big sailing plans himself in the future. They're just good crew, and they're there for winning the race. Okay, and I think that's the easiest way to explain it. They're serious about what they're doing, and it's working. And they've sort of optimized the boat. They're not doing many things wrong, and that's part of the secret. Sometimes you don't have to be super good if you don't make mistakes. You get ahead by watching other people, not watching other people make mistakes. Anyway, Jane, is this still going live? Because I've got a funny message here and nothing's happening with. Still going? Okay. All right. I've got an on-screen message that's saying it's all in French, saying there might be some problem or something. Anyway, so yeah, they're hot and they're doing really well. Okay, Tina, not a question, but thank you. Okay, thank you for making this possible for everyone. So much having lots of learning. Yeah, it is. We've got a lot of non-sailors following this because they relate to it. It's sort of like real people in real boats doing a real race and having a real lot of fun. That's the easiest way to explain it. So it's been great to follow and be at the stops to see Galliana and the rest of the fleet. Cool. Glad you're enjoying it. That's we like it when people have fun with it. Now a question. When boats arrive in England, is there some kind of boat and sail check that their IRC number is correct or something like that? Well, we've actually instigated from the Auckland stopover the requirement that we have two types of IRC certificates. This is very unusual for any race. Usually you'll declare in the notice of race you have to have an endorsed IRC certificate. So they measure the boat, measure the sails, all that stuff, and come up with the formula. We allow either an endorsed certificate or a standard production boat certificate. I'll use language which might mean more sense to the average person. In other words, if you've got a Swan 57, many Swan 57s have been officially endorsed and measured and come up with a proper rating certificate. That costs money. You'll spend €2,500 to €4,000 maybe getting everything done to get your IRC certificate. And so if an event allows it, you don't have to go through all of that. What they'll do is they'll send you a standard form, and it's up to the honour of the owner to write down and answer all of the questions in that form, which relate to the historical measurements of previous Swan 57s. And then they will come up with a rating based on the same, similar to the other Swan 57s. And they'll vary it if you've got extra sails or you've got a bowsprit or you've taken out some of the furniture to make it lighter. They add all that up based on the form that you fill out. And so what we've now said, and the guys that are really competitive have usually got an endorsed certificate, they measure it. But we now say that anyone that has a standard production boat certificate that's in first, second, or third place overall in IRC rankings, or which is first in class in IRC, we are actually doing a little bit of checking. So we plan to hopefully do the freeboard measurements to work out the displacement of the boat, and then look at the way the sails were declared and where the measurements came from. Now, we had intended to do that here in Auckland, but we got pushed for time and a few other issues, and it didn't actually happen. But we are monitoring that just to make sure it's fair and reasonable for those standard production boat certificates. So we'll carry on with that plan. Okay, Richard, bit of a left field question. In the Golden Globe race, there was a lot of problems with fouling, that's barnacles under the water, and discussions on different types of anti-fouling systems. In the OGR, there does not seem to be an issue. Why would this be? Well, I reckon Explorer is the worst case of anti-fouling management that you've ever seen in your life for an around-the-world yacht race. And I'll tell you why. We bought the boat in December of 2022. Okay, and it had just come back from the Med. It had done a 5,000-mile voyage or something. And I have no idea when that anti-fouling prior to that was put on. It could have been a year or so before. And then the boat, before we bought it, sat out in the hard over winter for about 4 months or something. And so it could have been a year old when we bought it in December. And we fully intended to paint the bottom on the boat. We did a lot of work in Holland. We took it to Les Sables d'Olonne. We tried to slip the boat there, but the boat was either too big for the certain slips or too small for the big ones. So we couldn't get it out of the water. We said, okay, we'll do it in England when we get there. But we started to compress the timeline and it wasn't possible. So we just put a diver on in the UK before the start. We put a diver on in Cape Town before the start. And we put a diver on here before the start. But to the best of my knowledge, the earliest that we put anti-fouling on Explorer was 2 years ago. But it's okay. And the reason there's no barnacles there is because the boats are moving a lot faster and we get to clean it. Here in Auckland, there was probably, if I counted individual barnacles, by the look of it, there was probably up to about 100 or less goose barnacles about this big, just around the rudder and so on. Oh, not even 100, maybe 60 or something like that. But the rest of the bottom was just slime. So we put a diver on, cost $500. And they wipe it all down, clean it all off, and you're ready to go again. So I don't even know what the anti-fouling is. I actually bought all the anti-fouling Plastimo stuff, which appears to be really good because I used it on my little Mini on Tracker going across the Atlantic, and all the other boats had problems with little barnacles and bits and pieces. But mine, using the Plastimo racing one, was fine. So I bought a bunch of that, put on the bottom, and I still got it. We haven't used them. So, and everyone else is doing different things, of course, but looking at our worst case situation, and we haven't had much of a problem. The others are fine. The ones that have replaced the fouling in the UK or just before the start, they look brand new. So the boats are moving faster. That's the biggest thing. Anything that hooks on is a hard time staying on. So it's not as bad as the GGR. The boats are going very slow, and it's a huge problem. So it'll be interesting to see how people get on in 2026. Because part of the argument with this might be that the world is changing, temperatures of the oceans are changing, the currents are changing, and it was random. Some boats were affected more than others, and I think it's possibly something to do with these big clouds of barnacle spores, and if your boat goes through it, they're going to lock on, so we'll see. Okay, Chris, also there seemed to be some uncertainty on which boats were over the start line and going to incur a 6-hour penalty. Turns out none of the boats were. It was very close. There was a few boats, they were running down the line, but they didn't wobble across. And when Triana came through, she pipped it a few seconds after the start. So no one was penalised there. We'd mentioned that a few times before, so that was good. Followed Triana, followed by Galliana, followed by Outlaw. They were the first 3 across the line. Question, how do you choose the various ports and countries for the race? Why no ports in the US for this race? One of the big things for me when we decided on the whole concept of the Ocean Globe race was to be a genuine race, okay, not a commercial circus. And the genuine race evolves from the clipper ships, which used to leave from Europe and sail non-stop around to Australia or New Zealand and pick up wheat and wool and all that sort of stuff, and then load up, and then they'd have a race from there back down around Cape Horn and back to Europe. And that's, Chichester was the first person to take it on. He tried to beat the clipper ship routes, okay, with Gypsy Moth, with one stop in Sydney, okay, and then people started thinking, the only thing left is a non-stop solo voyage. So that evolved into the Golden Globe race, which was the first ever yacht race, full race around the world, first ever race of any type around the world for yachts. 9 started, 1 finished, Sir Robert Knox-Johnson in Suhaili. And then the fully crewed guys thought, hey, they just race solo around the world. Bugger that. We better get into this. And so with Sir Robin and a few others, they discussed it, talked it up, and it evolved. And so you had your first Whitbread in 1973, 5 years after the first Golden Globe race. And then it went to the Volvo race. After the Whitbread went to the Volvo race, and money was involved, and it was a way of making money, and so-called, just you end up having like 10 legs or something and going up to China and everywhere around the world, and not even finishing in the finished port where they started. Nothing wrong with that. That's all cool, but we wanted to keep it genuine. So I was really keen to try and start in the UK. We didn't think it was going to happen. It was going to start in a European country. Let's say that it was absolutely going to start in a European country. Just at the last minute, that was saved, and we ended up starting in the UK. And you had to go to Cape Town, but we had real challenges with that, and that wasn't even confirmed until less than a year before the start. We finally got Cape Town. We were in discussion with Adelaide, Sydney, Gold Coast, and Auckland for the mid stopover, and fortunately, we're very happy to say that that Auckland grabbed us, and we're very happy they did, because this was a major part of the early Whitbread races as their favourite number one stopover, and without doubt, we were very well looked after in Auckland. And then the next stop. We're in discussion with various ports, and we're very happy to be going to Punta del Este in Uruguay, and we'll be going back to the UK for the finish. So, but it takes a long time. We had, for finish port, we probably had, I won't say intense discussions and negotiations, but we probably approached and spoke with about 12 different ports, including different countries. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 different countries, and it's been a long time and a bit of money, discussing all this. We passed up a big chunk of money to start in the Mediterranean, but we decided it wasn't appropriate, so we had to say goodbye to all that money, and it was a very genuine, nice offer, and we were happy to have that discussion, but we decided you couldn't get there in that situation, and that may change in the second edition, because it's all about the first edition, and we've achieved that historic course, starting and finishing in the UK, and sailing the traditional route around the world. And whether we start in the Mediterranean or in Europe or the UK for the next edition, that'll be all up for grabs, and we've already started some discussions on that already. So that's how it evolves. No port in the US, because the US wasn't a clipper ship's port. We did have some lobbying from a US port prior to the start, but it wasn't really on the agenda. We were very humble to have that approach, but it wasn't appropriate. Okay, Cliff, we've grown to love Ada over the years. Don, did she plan to let sadly, Ada is now, for personal reasons, decided to move on. That's probably the best way to put it. But yes, she's not actually with us any longer, and that's how the best way to describe it. John Pinto, I know ham radios are not allowed, but HF radios are allowed. What's the difference between them? Well, there's a huge difference. A marine radio is set to different frequencies, okay, very set specific frequencies. And most of the boats have got those frequencies, or they can dial them in, okay. And you have to have a station license with a call sign. So your radio has to be approved to a certain standard of the installation, and then you also have to have your own private license. You have to learn how to use it, and so on. So it needs a licensed operator, a station license with a call sign, and only be used on the marine frequencies. Now, ham radio is very similar radios, but they're using completely different frequencies. There's a different bandwidth on the radio spectrum. And there's ham radio operators all over the world, and there's squillions of frequencies that you can use, different bands, all the different megs, and hundreds and thousands of frequencies that anyone can get on, and so on. So it's not needed for this race. It doesn't affect the safety by not allowing ham radio, and it gives us a better chance of monitoring exactly what's happening, because there's certain things that you can and can't do. But we decided with the Golden Globe race that we wouldn't allow ham transmissions, and we're quite adamant that was a positive thing for the event, and it didn't affect the safety, but it takes us back to that era, and we've done the same with the OGR. So that's the difference. Is it the frequencies they can use? Yes, it is a difference there. Power of the radios. You can have any power radio you want. There's a minimum requirement for the OGR. It's 125 or 150 watts, I think it is. But you could have a 400 watt set. Most of them back in the day had big radios. They had big, powerful radios. But if you go from 150 to 400, you wouldn't even say that's necessarily twice as much power. You can go a long way with an HF radio that's well installed, with a 40 watt set. You could push it halfway around the world. It's how you use it, understanding skip, all sorts of different issues that most people in Europe don't understand, because they've never really used HF radios. But for anyone from the southern hemisphere, especially in Australia and bits and pieces. That's all we used to use. It was all HF radio, and you get a good grounding on that. So it is a bit of a mystery. If you want to get a ham license, it's quite complicated. You got to use Morse code, and you got to learn Morse code. You got to learn how radios work. You got to learn about electronics and all this sort of stuff. And ham operators, that's their buzz. It's all part of the fun of getting on the radio rather than just switching it on and doing something. They're actually all playing with their radios. That's quite cool. Okay. And was the special communication dispensation that was granted to Penduic this leg offered to other boats as well? No, it wasn't. Every boat has to abide by the notice of race, and within Penduic's case, we sometimes look at the big picture of what's happening. And with Penduic, they had installed the wrong type of Starlink on their boat in the beginning. And we gave them a dispensation for leg 1 because even though we've been dealing with them for 4 months on the issue and trying to tell them what they had to do, they didn't do it. And we didn't want to upset their media and so on because Penduic has a significant following, to say the least. So we gave them a dispensation on the condition that they fitted an approved Starlink in Cape Town. Now, in Cape Town, they didn't do that. So effectively, they were locked out for leg 2. And then by the time they got to Auckland here, they had the option to fit one if they wanted to. And they still didn't. And there's a few things going on there with their campaign and their budgets and their funding and their partners and so on. And so we looked at that, and it was very clear that it simply wasn't going to happen. So they were going to go around without it. And we like what they do. So we've decided to support them in the event for the next 2 legs of the race. And we've given them a dispensation on certain conditions for using their Starlink, and also to allow Marie to do up to a 1,000-word blog every week. The reason for that was simply that she is well known for her blog. Okay, she likes the written word, and it's pretty powerful. She wasn't able to do any of that. She suffered because of that, which affected some of her partner relations and so on. And for OGR right now, we are monitoring very carefully all aspects of the event, okay, just because this is an inaugural event, and we will review the outcomes of the event before we finalise some aspects of 2027. And so in simple terms, there's 2 reasons why we've given this dispensation to Marie. One is she was never going to get it now going forward. We were on the home run the last 2 legs, and it impacted her. We want to see how strong and how good this may be if we allow words, right? So it's she's a bit of a guinea pig, you might say, for us as well, just to see what happens, and that may affect the way that we look at 2027. So this is an opportunity for us, and it's an opportunity for them. And so we made a decision, and we've given them that dispensation. And it was only given hours before she departed the dock at the time. So that's the reason why. There you go. Okay, Tina, question. Don, is there a possibility to add penalty times to the YB tracker? So when seeing IRC ratings, already knowing the translator has that penalty already in, and other boats as well. We discussed that, but technically speaking, the penalty doesn't come into effect until they cross the finish line. Okay, the penalty is applied to the entrance times for this particular leg. So there will be a listing. In fact, it may already be there. There will be a listing. We discussed this a couple of weeks ago of all the various penalties that all the various boats have got, particularly for the sail penalties and so on, for leg 3. So you can see what they are, and you can do a mental calculation, but it won't be applied until the very end. It's the appropriate way to do it, and it's easier as well and more accurate, because for a couple of reasons. Otherwise, you'll be seeing a penalised time on the leaderboard position just for line honours, let alone IRC. So you're just going to have to wait. When they finish, it's a provisional time, and then when the penalty is applied, that's the official time. So I think that's one. Really enjoyed that. Okay, Steve, am I the only one who hears a chicken clucking in the opening music with windy creaking decks, sound effects to the tracker updates just before it fades out, presumably recorded of Explorer. Well, I mean, no. I'm not sure where all that comes from. I'll have to have another good look. And I can't even tell you where that music comes from. Rob dropped that in. It'll be copyright-free music. But I haven't seen any reference to clucking chickens. And it certainly wasn't recorded on Explorer. So I'm not sure. I hope that answers the question. Hi, Don from Roger. Explorer's 9.6 knots average, previous 4 hours. Did you put some new secret speed generator on board at Auckland? I think that might be the fastest they've recorded. I think it's because they actually got a week of rest here and had a few fun at the functions and so on. That was something new for them. They didn't turn up in Cape Town till after it was all over, and they're thinking party time in Punta. And I think that's affecting all the fleet if you're following it. Like White Shadow's flying, Sterner's right up there. All the ones that, there's just some crazy things going on at the moment. It's like, wow. And so I think they're thinking, let's get to Punta in a hurry and have another party. I'm not sure, but nothing new on Explorer. We cleaned the bottom as usual. We've got a couple of new, rotating crew and so on. There's a couple of interesting people there, but I don't know whether they did a big impact. But one thing that has changed, and this was part of my, I said to Mark, okay, this is what you're going to do for leg 2 and 3. I've changed the watch system. They've previously been running a 3-watch system, and that means that there were 10 people on board and 3 watches of 3. So Mark would float and the other 3 would rotate their positions every 4 hours. Now that means there's only ever 3 people on deck. Okay, so you've got 1 person on the helm, 2 people in the cockpit doing things, and if the shit hits the fan, there's just not enough people there to do anything. So I said, okay, time to change the watch system. You will now do a 2-watch system. We've got 11 people on the boat. That means Mark can float. And each watch system will have 5 people. So if things are happening, there'll be 5 people on deck. There's 1 person on the helm and another 4 in the cockpit ready to go. And that's what you find on, remember that boat with 50 sails? Flyer? That's exactly what they did, a 2-watch system. We can say Clipper race around the world, big boats, lots of people, 2-watch system. Most of the performance boats, 2-watch system, because you just have more people available. And so for whatever, I'm wondering if that's the difference. I got no idea, but they certainly had a big quantum shift in their watch systems, and I don't believe that they would change back to the 3. It's just the way to go. And there's some little benefits from that. If you have 5 people on watch and you're doing an Atlantic leg and it's beautiful weather, you can easily have 1 person down below doing the cooking, getting lunch ready or whatever. But more importantly, if it's really good, you can actually give on a rotating basis 1 person 1 full day off, okay, every 10 days. They do nothing for the whole day. They can sleep in their bunk, they can read a book, they can do whatever. And obviously, if they need it, they're called up straight away. But to have 1 full day off is a huge psychological boost to catch up on sleep, catch up on daydreaming, do what you like. And you can do that with a 2-watch system if you've got the right number of people. So, the take on watch systems is very interesting, but Explorer's watch system has absolutely changed now, and maybe that's making a difference. Because when you got 4 there, you can all, you get bored with each other. So what should we do? Let's trim the sails. Oh, okay, good idea. Let's hold the main sheet. Don't cleat it off, It's a real psychological thing. If you say the house rules are that you never cleat the main sheet, someone's got to hold the bloody thing all the time. And if you're holding it, you might as well keep playing with it, Okay, so it sounds strange, but I doubt whether, who knows. That's you can always tell a boat if it's going somewhere, someone's on that main sheet all the time. Or, most people are on spinnaker sheet, but some boats are trimming all the time. When Victoria was on Translated, I listened to the stories of all what their deal was. They ran a 2-watch system, and they're trimming all the time, absolutely all the time. And that's how you go fast. So, who knows? Where are we? Okay. When Amy, when boats are crossing the finish line, why is there no official hooter or sound notification? I think this would make it more of a defining moment for the crew and us watching as well. Would this be possible moving forward, please? Yeah, there is a sound usually. Someone in the box or someone on the boat's pushing the horn, but it might be a long way from us on when we're doing the lives. And one thing I mucked up on this start, I didn't calibrate my watch, and it was pretty right, but it was hard to tell exactly the moment that they would have gun the line, and often we're not lined up exactly with the start line, so we're a bit arbitrary there on that one. But it's that sort of race, and I've got to tell you, it's nice to be first across the finish line. It's a real status symbol, and it sets a psychological moment. But it's also nice not to damage the boat or muck up your boat. It's a long way around. And so I was watching this start. It was cool. There was a bunch of boats at the beginning, stressed out, and then along comes Maiden and Pete Jewick, and said, "That's cool. Let's go, boys." Nice and steady as she goes. But that's yacht racing. Everyone's in it for different reasons, and so there is a hooter usually, and we scream and shout when they cross the finish line. So that's a little bit. But I know what you're saying. It's just a bit hard to organise because the guy with the hooter's way down the other end of the line for the starts and stuff, and even the finishes. Okay, I think this okay from Tina again. Question about green cards. Has Spirit of Helsinki at the beginning? Or was Spirit of Helsinki at the beginning with green card and then was changed, or was that green card not accepted along the line? Basically, what happened is Spirit of Helsinki they didn't get a revalidation on the green card here in Auckland because they hadn't finished all the financial responsibilities as part of the race. The final checklist for the green card is that everything's got to be perfect. They've got to finish all their safety inspections, all their crew updates, all their data. There's a huge amount of information. Every PLB on every the crew members has to be matched against the crew to make sure they haven't changed and so on. And then if you've got a penalty, whether it's time or financial, you've got to pay all your financial penalties before you do your green card, and anything overhanging in the race as well. So in their case, it was a financial situation. They weren't up to date. We shut the race, shut the office down for those application of the green card at 4:30, I think it is, on the Friday, and it doesn't reopen until 10. That was the way we called it for Spirit of Helsinki. And they put up an argument to suggest this is the reason why, and they caught up on those financial issues, so that was paid. So technically they were free, and they put an argument up to say, "Oh, look, it's a bit tough now. We've done all that, and we've still got to wait till the other side." And I said, "Yeah, okay, we will do that." And so we revalidated their card on Saturday night, I think it was late Saturday night. We revalidated their green card, so they were free to start. So they were happy. They're happy. I'm not sure they're happy at the moment though. Not going fast. Anyway, as Friday's information before the start was earliest happened on Monday. Happiest for sure that they started and all was green. It was just confusing. Yeah, it was confusing but we put it out there to let the world know they probably weren't starting. So no questions from I can't even pronounce it, but he's a good fan, good follower. But I thought that was very good. No question. What happened to Ada? Well, as I mentioned, for personal reasons, Ada's not now with us, which is the way it sometimes goes. But she will be at Punta and doing a few things there. Okay, Ricky. Why are full keeled boats required for the GGR and not a requirement for the OGR? Well, GGR boats were conceived and chosen to mimic the sort of boats that were used back in 1968, like Robert Knox Johnson's boat Sue Haley. It was a full keel boat. The rudder was on the trailing edge of the keel, and then you had quite a heavy little boat, so we have minimum displacements and so on. And that's part of that concept. And they're quite cool boats, they're not as fast and not as maneuverable and so on, but they track well under wind vanes, and they're usually incredibly strong. So that was all part of the requirement. With the OGR, that goes back to the Whitbread race, which was only 4 or 5 years later, but there was a lot of development already. And even Sue Haley, for her era, she was probably a boat that normally came from 50 years before 1968. There were some very hot boats around in 1968. In fact, I'm always amazed when I see the design of some boat like the SNS 36. I think the SNS 36 was designed in the early 60s, which is a hot boat, and so it was just that when Robin and his brother decided to build the boat in India, they got a design out of one of the yachting magazines. I think it was Yachting World or something, or from somewhere. And so that looks like a good boat to build in India. Let's build it. Boom. They didn't build it for the Ocean Globe race, for the Gold Globe race. It didn't even exist. They just saw a good seaworthy type boat, and so they did it. But the Whitbread, when it was around 73, it was hot boats. You can see Nicholson 55, Swan 65, all that full-on modern boat, so that's why. Is the exercise of the boats that make the full keel not a requirement? No, the size is nothing. You can still get big full keel boats, like that. But the Whitbread was a different type of event. Okay, that's it. So I'll just check the comments here. Check the comments if I find the slide in this very weak screen and see what's happening. Okay, Jane checked it out. This could be a bit of spam there. I'm not sure. There's a big comment there and whatever. I don't know. I'll check it out later. Hi, Christine, Nigel, Don. I'm here in the middle of the night in the UK. What are you doing up? You should be asleep. So, anyway, okay. Thanks, Mark. I wonder why the GGR has more viewers than the OGR. Oh, there's two reasons for that. Two reasons. The GGR is unique, absolutely unique. There's no other single-handed race like it around the world. And we've been through two editions. Okay, so the first edition in 2018, I think we had, I forget now, 45,000 followers, I think. We had a few dramas, which pulled people into the event. And then by the time we finished the next one, I think we're up to 65,000 or something. So it took two editions over a long period of time. So that's 8, 9, 10, 11. It's been there for 11 years from when we launched it in 2015. And I'm quite certain that by the time we get to the next OGR in 27, there are going to be a lot more people who will be following. So that's probably the reason. Also, single-handed sailing, particularly like the Golden Globe race, is one sailor and a huge epic story and adventure. A fair bit more risk. We mitigate that risk, but risk is part of the attraction. So a lot of people say, "Whoa, check this silly guys and girls out in their stupid little boats, sailing around the world for 10 months without doing anything." It's like, what? And the OGR is also a great human adventure, and it's back to the basics and real. So people are getting it, and we have a lot more people following than the 18,000 that you see there right now. I can tell you that for a fact. We reckon it's over 40, 50, 60,000 because, hardly anyone that's giving emotions has actually liked GGR. They're all people that are just there. Most people have been invited because when I've got nothing to do, I'll go there and ping you all. Go ping, ping, invited. But you never follow up in the invite. So if you're still there reading this and you've been invited, just say you like us. Anyway. Okay. Jeff, you've got to work out how to comment as a file. Or if you want, when we see a Q&A, Jeff, just put a comment in the bottom of it, and you'll be there. Okay, that's me done, I think. So we'll see you from the other side. We're going to be in Punta. We leave tomorrow morning, and looking forward to that. The other team members are holding the fort. They're handling the crisis management while I'm in the air with Jane, and we'll be there established soon. And looking forward to that. Yacht Club Punta del Este is great. People are so warm and hospitable. Anyway, looking forward to that. See you later. That's enough for me for now, and bye-bye. See you tomorrow morning.